We want to make Sokuzan's teachings available to all who would benefit from hearing the Dharma from his perspective. You may relate to this if you are returning to these talks time and again and find value in them. Consider supporting us financially and participating with questions during Dharma talks and at book studies. Thank you.
So I wasn't able to come up with a talk title. Sokuzan suggested that I did, but the basic idea behind what he wanted me to talk about was people believing their judgments, opinions, blaming other people, concepts as a way to not receive this world of love, as I remember.
It's practically a quote. Thank you.
And then he just kind of asked what I thought about that, and for me to talk about that. I did come up with the talk title, but it's The Myth of Importance, and I don't know if I'll get there because it didn't seem to relate to anything that I thought I would present. So we'll see if I get there.
I like that you need my approval.
So to start off, I just wanted to talk about what thoughts are, just thinking of that in general. I don't think that we can know what a thought is, that it's something very elusive. We all know what we're talking about when we say what a thought is, or we have an experience of what a thought is, but you'd never be able to prove what that thought is to another, or the shape or the texture or the quality of every thought is so intimate, unique, and like smoke. It's hard to get a clear picture of it. And I think that might be different in other people's minds, but I think that could be said about people's thoughts, that it's very slippery, so to speak. So we don't even really know what thoughts are. The teachings go into the three poisons, being that that's what blocks us from seeing what this is, from receiving the world. But even that, we really don't know what the three poisons are. We can point to them, but it's never going to be the same. So passion, when you're going after something through your conceptual framework out of a self, that all thoughts seem to be related to a self also, that thoughts themselves pin down the world, that is also very, I don't know if ephemeral is the right word, but smoky, slippery. The world is not static. And every concept says this, but there isn't a this. There aren't things, even if it looks very solid. Every chair is different. Everything we can name is just a representation of whatever it is in front of us. So thoughts are hard to talk about. This is hard to talk about, but we're going to need some reference points, and we're pretty able to use these reference points because we're using them all the time. We're quite skilled at building up a static world that looks very real. So I think as to go into the three poisons, passion, aggression, and ignorance. Passion is when something arises and we add to it in some way. You could say that all three of them, there's an addition happening, rather than feeling the experience of that thought come, of that emotion come, and watching it, receiving it, and letting it be what it is. We modify, and I'm thinking of Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, where the monkey solidifies the waterfall. Life is like a beautiful scene in front of us, and then we stop it and we add something else. And I want that. And the problem with that is it causes so much pain. One, there isn't a that, and if we were to get that, we still wouldn't be happy anyway. The problem is that addition, that passion, that aggression, that ignorance. So aggression is pushing something away, quite obvious in our mind stream, or that kind of taste or texture or feeling. And a way of describing ignorance is also an addition, that we don't like what's in front of us, or yeah, it shows up and then we add and turn away from it. And the addition could just be body language, that we move our body away. So we aren't able to receive that. So we, in a sense, judge it and move away. I wanted to say that the way of working with this, um, as I understand it, is some form of stillness, primarily awareness practice. But I think that, and stillness is kind of a loaded word. I think like mantra practice could also help engender a stillness, or a contrast to the speediness of our mind, even with using speed. It's kind of confusing to say that, or sounds like a silly statement. But the idea being that we're going to need some help, potentially some forms, to be able to witness how we prefer a world of our own versus the world that's being presented. And for me, this topic of, receiving the world of love, I don't hear Sokuzan say it much as love. But I thought of other teachers who have expressed it, like Thich Nhat Hanh saying, smile at your anger. And I think that might have been more genuine for that human to say that. But for me, it's another way of saying receive, that even if it's war, even if it's nasty and gross, it, it doesn't need to be pushed away. It doesn't need to be, you don't have to do anything with it. It's love because it deserves your attention. It's love because it's part of everything. And even that's a little bit fishy, or it gets tough when you're describing what's received in one word. The nature of reality in one word is always going to be a little bit sticky. Another way of approaching that stillness is through the senses, just to see with your eyes that there seems to be perhaps more of a natural balance or natural stillness to the other sense fields that can give us a little bit more clarity about what this world is, that the eyes are more obviously receivers, that we seem to be here and receiving everything in front of us, and that there's a quality of space always present in that sense field. But in my experience, the mind, it's not as easy to see. It's not a quality of stillness, but it's harder to see stillness in the mind just because of how much shit we kick up in our mind, just how quickly and how unaware we are of that spinning that is occurring in our mind, trying to protect ourselves, trying to advance ourselves, trying to get somewhere, trying to hide out, whatever, always doing something. The rest of my notes aren't very helpful to me. One says everything is dependently arisen. Um, but that's been, I suppose, helpful to me recently to perhaps soften or go into the areas of my mind that are fearful for me, and to realize that my thoughts are not my own. It's that isn't a me. There's no one that needs protecting from going anywhere, that we're capable of receiving anything. Nothing's threatened. Another reason I think that I've been thinking of that too is one of the more recent teachings from Sokuzan to me directly was that my children are not my own. And that's been pretty helpful, and I don't think um, that that could be said by many people to me, and have that be helpful. The thing I love the most, the thing I meddle with the most, the person in front of me the most is not mine. They're not even theirs. If there's no ownership anywhere. And then my title was The Myth of Importance. Take questions. Yoka.
Milka bowing. I'm curious about when those thoughts come up and it's like judgment, 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 and there doesn't seem to be any stillness. Do we need to find the three poisons or the stillness?
No, I think it's more about, it's not even an intention to find stillness. It's more of just intend to be aware. You don't have to find anything. That kind of is a finding, that speediness. The world doesn't have to show up in a particular way. That helpful, or is there an area of that you wanted to go into?
Milka bowing. That's in the direction I think my curiosity is around the space. Does there need to be space? And if so, how do we look for that, or do we need to look for that?
I don't think we need to look for it. I think it's something that kind of is uncovered. Space is always present. It's always there. Words are stupid. It's not there also. But no, I don't think you have to find it. I don't think you have to crank up space or feel like you're missing out if it's very claustrophobic for you. The fact that you can see that claustrophobia says that there's space there. There's always space there. You don't have to find it. And I feel like the deeper this practice takes us, often the less space it feels like. I'm thinking of, maybe it was Chogyam Trungpa, but I'm remembering it through Sokuzan saying it, that you have to go right through it, that it's quite claustrophobic to feel what you're feeling rather than bringing some space in to soften it.
Milka bowing in the midst of the judgments or the quick thoughts coming up. I'm not thinking so much on the cushion, but out interacting with people, like in a conversation, there's like, you say this and they say that, and they're like, oh, you remember this or that, or it doesn't seem like you were saying, there's judgment and then look at the movement. I don't seem to have there's not even the thought of looking at the movement. Is there a way to, do we need to look at that as we're going about our day, or is that just reserved for the cushion?
I think that'd be more of a question for your teacher to see if any meditation and action would be appropriate. And generally, it's done on the cushion or through kind of a strict formality of awareness practice. Yeah, so I don't know. I wouldn't prescribe anything else to you other than the forms here or what you're already doing.
Thank you.
Kandroma?
Kandroma bowing. Do we reinforce the ego even when we receive the thoughts that arise? Bowing.
I'm not sure. It's a good question. How do you mean reinforce? Maybe it would help me get there.
Kandroma bowing, it seems like someone is receiving. And so therefore we're strengthening the receiver, even though we're seeing the thought and we're not doing anything with the thought. Is there still a receiving that's happening that actually strengthens the ego, the identity, the solidity? Bowing.
I mean, quite often, I think in a room full of practitioners, we all have our insight into how sneaky we become special receivers, or we've been meditating a long time. So a little bit of congratulations on how much we've sat, how much we've practiced, how much better I am at being quiet and listening to someone. Even if some of that's true, then there's that kind of side door, that pocket for ego to fill up, where they get to be kind of a special person who's getting better. I don't think that that's always the case. Sometimes our minds are truly blown and we don't know what's happening in front of us, and there truly isn't anyone there. So perhaps that's happening all the time, but we just keep opting for the falsehood of a self, the chattering.
Kandroma bowing, is there anything we can do to see that subtle reinforcing? Bowing.
I think the practice of meditation to see the subtleties of the mind really needs a lot of body stillness. And perhaps not for everyone, perhaps just the intention for some people, some progress could be made in that area, but I don't have much success without practice at seeing clearly.
Kandroma bowing, what about the receiving of a thought, or to watch what we do with thoughts? Lost my question.
Thank you.
Can a thought be found?
I don't think so.
What is a thought?
I don't know.
Can you see a thought?
I think thoughts can be received, but I couldn't give you a definition of what a thought is. I think that we're receiving thoughts all the time, so I think that it can be received, but to point at what that is being received is difficult, or like there's nothing in our physical reality, there's nothing that we can share in that way.
So what is the quality of receiving? What is actually happening there? What is receiving itself?
I don't know. You have another way of asking it, or
What's the
curious too.
ultimate nature of phenomena?
Oh, never mind.
Don't put up with that crap.
I don't know.
I guess so. Could we look at it? How do you look at it, like texture? Does texture help you to identify thinking or a thought?
Sure, it's like a movement. Is maybe a better word for me, because the texture kind of interrupts that space, so to speak, or not that it interrupts it, there's nothing to be interrupted, but yeah, I think that helps me get a better handle on a thought. Is that what you're asking?
I think what was standing out for me from the beginning of the talk was this idea of tempo or time, and my curiosity is about how we gauge the time of thoughts, like how long a thought takes, and in order to, how do we, how can that be possible? How is it possible to see like the length of a thought?
Right, I think that's just an addition. I don't think that time actually exists in the space of the mind, or the space even though it kind of appears that way, or it's kind of a magical area of, you could have some contrast of a big red balloon and a small mouse, so like it looks like there's space in the mind, like that we can draw a picture like that, uh, but when we're talking about those concepts actually arising, is there any space there? Doesn't seem like it. Anything else?
Thank you.
Shuiwu.
By rebelling, um, is the teaching that even our thoughts are dependently arisen?
Teaching? I'd say it's a good teaching.
Shui rebelling, I guess that's a weird way of saying it, but is that the case?
I
Or
think
even
so,
our thoughts are dependently arisen?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Chandra bowing. What is it about receiving or watching the movement of the mind that helps us see that this is an illusion? That what we're actually seeing is an illusion? Bowing.
I feel like that's going to be different for everyone. For me, there's just a profound sense of lack of control when there's that much stillness, that the mind is still just building and building and building and going this way and going this way. And then even off the cushion, I don't really know why I'm doing anything. Or if I come up with a reason, it's always half-assed, or it never really explains. The dependent origination is so complex that we can't really get in there and be a person. There's not enough room for us to do that. What was your question again?
Chandra bowing. What is it about receiving or observing the movement of the mind that helps us see that this is an illusion? And I want to add an addendum based on what you just said. What is the difference between an illusion and emptiness then? Bowing.
I think they're just two concepts trying to help us see what this is. I don't think that either hold up or that you could truly stand on, because if you lean on it too much or squeeze it too much with an analytical mind, it'll kind of crumble. And maybe not. Maybe now I'm thinking of some Tibetan texts that make it sound like it's very crisp and it will hold up, just because of the skill of the presenter to be able to support a logical argument like emptiness. I forgot what you asked. Okay.
Chandra bowing. I'm so curious as to what helps us see that this is an illusion. What helps us see that we are not separate? What helps us see through the solidity of this identity? And you've been talking about observing thoughts or observing movement. How does that help us see that this is an illusion? Well,
I think we just slowly stop buying into the thoughts, because that's some of the issue is we're really believing it. So even if belief shows up, that's fine. It is about awareness, but the whole thing starts to stink. Every time we have a concept about going somewhere and doing something, that we need this and we need to blame this person, and we think we're really important. We're that 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 we need to do something. So through that process of receiving, and interrupt myself before I forget, to answer your question too, I think a lot of it comes from the inspiration of the teacher. Meeting a teacher that sees this is so important for me. Sometimes it's like riding that wave of that. That's how it's done, is that here's someone receiving and you've met them, and that I hate to use the word devotion for how I'm talking about it right now, but that nothing's separate, that you are the teacher and the teacher realizes this, and you can sense it, like the unconditional confidence that there's a difference between most people giving a Dharma talk. But for me, it just shines through when there's some unshakable confidence to say some pretty radical things that, like ethics, for example, how Sokuzan can very adamantly say ethics are bullshit. There isn't a right or wrong, and live his life in that way and still maintain high ethical conduct. So it's not like a cop out of like ethics are bullshit, I can do whatever I want. But uh, anyway, I think the teacher, the community of practitioners who resonate with this kind of a teaching is all very inspiring, and kind of goes with the receiving, that you can sense when other people are receiving a little bit. So I think, how does the receiving help us see this as an illusion? Was something about your question. I think it just slowly dismantles ego. I think it slowly, another Jogam Trumpa, but the soup, the carrot finally gets bleached out very slowly. It takes a long time and it's painful, because we want to be someone, and the more scared we get, the more protective we get, or more aggressive we get. So the closer we are to death, the more it seems we're willing to fight.
Kanjor bowing, that reminds me of your title, A Myth of Importance, where we're so fixated and self-important.
You have a question out of it?
Don't.
Thank you. Junshu.
Bowing.
He's very funny. Sorry.
When you are trapped by your thoughts or backing yourself into a corner, like saying to yourself, I shouldn't be doing this, something like that. What do you do to bring yourself back to awareness, or try to do as little as possible? Like, is there something you do, or a phrase you remember?
The way you're asking it sounds a little bit too prescriptive to get out of a difficult time. That it feels a little bit like meddling, like that when things get tough, then I need to bring some awareness in there, or I jump to a reminder. I think that the reminders and the training is more there to kind of organically work with the situation as it arises. So I wouldn't like prescribe anything. I think true not doing is just not doing. There's not like a backup for it. So I think if I've backed myself into a corner intellectually, I'm just backed in or just backed into a corner. It just hurts. And that's, call it the ideal version. Most of the time, I just add and fight to that or try to fix it or try to ground myself in a way that you're asking about it. And yeah, so nothing shows up for me as real prescriptive. I think it's fine to be in those dark areas, or that's where we need to get, and need to get isn't really the word, but there's no reference point for this, and especially in the dark areas when we're scrambling and clawing for one. It's about seeing that, just how bouncy the scared part of ourselves is. It's about seeing what's actually happening. That is actually happening. Terrified all the time. So I don't think it's about bringing more space in so that I can be more sane. I already posture that quite enough.
Juju bowing. It seems like for me, when there's a lot of mental activity, there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of doing something, or the mind, it seems, is doing a lot of spinning or producing. So are you saying with the teaching of don't do anything with it, that not doing anything could look like doing a lot of things?
Yeah.
Shit.
Jishi?
Nishikai, what happens when you question your thought that your children's are yours? Bowing.
That my children are not my own, like the teaching
Sorry, that your children are. Sorry.
That's okay.
Different connotation.
Are they mine or not?
Really my kids.
I had a joke with Nicole. I'll have to say this. Nicole is not Asian, but I would always tell her, I'm really hoping for an Asian baby. I think they're so cute. What happens when I think or reflect on that?
When you question it, yes.
Pretty amazing to see, just really flashes on my own attachment and desire to control and protect my children and my love for my children, and it's all me, 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 me. And I think it helps me see that, just how it's probably what I'm most tethered to at the moment in my life, just how much mental chatter, how much of my physical being, my presence is in front of my children all the time these days. And they're not mine. It's kind of none of my business what they do. And then I get to see how much I really try to make them do things all the time. Yeah, that is what comes up. Did you have anything further?
We've been talking recently a lot about how belief is imprisoning us, our actions and thinking. So I'm wondering whether questioning our thoughts, our beliefs, is in any way to at least more space, more opening to see the contrast, just by saying, yes, those children are not mine, as a contrast to grasping them and believing that they belong to you. Bowing.
Was the question, part of it is asking questions about your own beliefs helpful for bringing space in? Can you say it again?
I'm wondering whether questioning our beliefs, it can be a way of creating that openness, of openness around something which we take for granted, something which is a strong reference point to us.
I think it depends on the person. That feels a little bit tricky it would be tricky for myself because of how circular my mind is. I would ask myself a question and I'd answer it and I'd feel like there was more space, but really I just created a new problem for myself down the road because I don't know, there's just not enough what I wanted to say is much better if it comes from a teacher or someone that you've given a little bit of permission to help you see. So I wouldn't necessarily prescribe that as a way of practicing for yourself. The intellect is just too tied into the ego. Not saying that that couldn't be done, and that a lot of our practice or a lot of our study, like studying Buddhist texts, kind of brings that out, helps us kind of question our assumed beliefs. But I think that's enough. I wouldn't ask ourselves too many questions about what we believe in because it's just a preconception on a preconception on a preconception. And I think it might be the illusion that we're getting somewhere.
Thank you.
Okay. Erlon, where are you at?
I don't know. I keep trying to go back to your talk title, but your talk title isn't what you're talking about. So I'm like stuck in the loop. So, what are you talking about?
I think it just has resonated with me recently, just realizing how afraid I am to show up in certain ways, how much I keep everything under wraps. I think I'm really important, or like I want to show up as someone who has understanding, has it together, and it's just exhausting and just kind of and the myth of importance, the importance to do something, just the how magnetizing the world is that we really need to do something. My life is filled with so much busyness that it's, oh, we have to do the dishes right now. We have to clean up the toys on the ground. I'm sick of stepping on them. Maya needs fed in 5 minutes, and I got all these bottles to do, and it feels very important. But it's not really in the sense that I think that it is, and that my feelings aren't that important. I'm always trying to get unstressed. I'm always trying to get happy. And I think this is the case for a lot of people. So we just put a lot of importance on manipulating our world to get to a better spot. But it appears that most of us aren't very successful at that through manipulation or through thinking about it, through pushing and pulling and ignoring.
Promote going. It's not a clear question, I'm sorry. Could you say more about that relationship between importance and like doing stuff? Maybe stuff that we don't need to do. Bowing.
I'm not sure the example that's coming up for me is like smoking pot. Like it shows up as like I'm really stressed out. I really need to do this. Like I just need to relax. I've had enough and I really need to do this. And for me, it shows up as like a importance, like I gotta do this. And that's just like a strong feeling in me, or like that's maybe how I would resonate with it. But I think it shows up in so many ways. We're just like pulled into it. It feels so important to do things. And that's just our life. We have to kind of watch ourselves kind of think that we have a big impact on the world.
Is it possible to have to do something? Have to do something that's not important? Don't think too much.
Have to do something that's not important. I think we're doing that all the time. So maybe I'm not clear on the question. Could you ask it in a different way?
So it's just a way of addressing dependent origination as it is seen, as it is, not as we think it is. Contemplate it and give a talk on it later on. Just a
If I-
request, not an order, just a request.
If I can remember it.
I'll remind you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Got a
Toshiba.
couple minutes, go ahead.
Off that, is there, do we decide what we have to do?
I think we do all the time, but usually in error, that there's the false importance that we are someone that can do that thing that we think is important. And life had it was a joke. We thought we really needed to do that, but then something else walked into the door. And because we still are drawn and magnetized to do that thing we thought we needed to do, but we're completely ignoring that fresh piece of information that totally changes the situation. Did I answer your question?
Is that what a thought sounds like when you're making a decision?
I'm not sure I'm clear on what you're asking.
I wonder what it feels like to decide, like that moment when the decision occurs. Is there quality to it where you're aware, like, oh, I just decided something.
I don't think so. That sounds a little bit fishy to me, like the ego sounding the alarm that it's important again, that the decision's been made. It's the right way to go. I think it's more lost than that, but that's actually probably what's most appropriate is you're not really sure. You're a little bit on receive and you don't know what this is. And maybe a good example would be the Community Mindfulness Center to see someone be so certain that something needs to arise and kind of with a lot of feedback that it's not going to work and just very adamant that that needs to be done, or the retreat huts. So that's my only like contrast as far as that it's showing up as a concept or it's showing up as someone who's confident that that needs to be done. But I feel like in most people's operations, that's usually bullshit when they kind of have a conviction about it. Usually it's a squeezing and a greediness to that it's right. Even if it's helping other people, even if it's being a good person, it's still kind of a greediness for most people.
That deciding process.
Yeah, or the way you were characterizing it.
Can a decision be seen without a concept? Can you see yourself in action deciding?
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, to go and kind of soften up on that it's always a greedy process. I think it can just be part of it too, and that it becomes clearer and clearer that this is more than likely what I'm gonna do. Sorry, I feel a little like I'm swimming around your question or inquiry.
No, I appreciate your response.
Yeah, thank you. Shui, did you have something?
Shui Wu bowing. I guess I was just thinking if the whole process is dependently arisen, I mean, none of it really matters. I was just thinking of
Ask him.
if the thought to make a decision is dependently arisen, and then the action is dependently arisen, and everything in between, all the links are dependently arisen, then it's like we didn't have any choice in the whole thing, right? This whole thing happened in the illusion. It came out and I had no part in it. I was just the expression of it. That's what's happening?
I mean, is that what's happening? You're just an expression of it. I think so, but not just limited to even just this of who you think you are. It also goes beyond that to everything else, that everything is dependently arisen. So and not that you are the world either, but if you look at anything, you didn't do it. If you look at your hands, it's amazing. It's mysterious. This whole world is beyond a self. It needs everything. I'll take one more. Ray, you have your hand up.
Ray bowing. Sorry if this question comes out of the out of a corner, but I was wondering what you thought about the belief in God, and whether you think it's like something real or perhaps like a crutch for the mind. Bowing.
I think both. I think religious traditions that use the word God can be pointing to what this is, and that's their way of teaching. And I think a good many of people teaching with the concept God are using it as a crutch or a belief to just believe and kind of ignore the rest of the world because of your strong belief in God, and that'll take care of everything, or some other form of ignorance, that it can be a crutch for the self rather than a seeing what this is. But I think it can be very valid.
Do you think it can go well with the belief in Buddhism, or do you think that there's a conflict there?
I don't think it's used very often as a way of seeing. I don't think that there's a conflict there, that a Buddhist can use anything. It's there. It's a concept. It could be helpful to a Buddhist. I don't know. I don't know. There's so many different ways of practicing, even in Buddhism, that there are gods and deities in Buddhism. I think maybe the approach is slightly different, though, than most theistic traditions, with Buddhism being a non-theistic tradition. So it's not positing a God, but it's not necessarily saying never to say God or use the word or practice with gods.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.